Estimates that economic growth in emerging markets will come in at 4.5% this year, more than double that of developed markets this year. Despite the higher growth environment, our next guest says that only 1% of investors' portfolios are allocated to the group because of risk concerns. He thinks adding exposure to emerging economies in your investment portfolio could actually lower your level of risk. Joining me now is Bahim Ashdir. He is President and CEO at Excel Funds. Good to have you with us. So I want to talk about emerging markets. We know the story of why we can find growth in the emerging markets because they're growing economies and the risk has come down a little bit. What's the boldest call you think you've ever made, successful call, in the emerging markets trade?
Well, I've been talking about India for a long time. And just to give you a quick example, in 1998, we launched the Excel India Fund. And there were 1 million cell phones in India at that time. Today, they have more than 800 million cell phones.
Right. Well, everyone has a cell phone now, pretty much. Yeah,
but it's numbers game.
Sure.
So
what do you see today that's analogous to that with your investments in India?
If you look at the car industry now, India has 2% penetration. Compare that to Canada, which has 62% penetration.
So do you look at Tata Motors, or you look at some of the big car producers?
Yeah, Suzuki, Tata Motors, Maruti. These are all manufacturers that have moved into India. So this 2% penetration means they have 27 million cars versus Canada that has 22 million cars. But this 2% penetration is going to become 4% penetration. Therefore, they're going to have 60 million cars over the next 5 years.
So it's such a consumer play, and in a way, India has always been a consumer play. It's now as much an infrastructure play and has been for the last several years. There's been bold projects that are being created in India, new airports, big projects. Is there any new area of infrastructure that you're taking a look at?
Well, actually, this is quite exciting. If you look at China, 10 years ago, China was a $2 trillion economy. Today, China is a $10 trillion economy. And India today is a $2 trillion economy. So all that infrastructure development that happened in China is about to happen in India. So another bold prediction I'll make it today is that in the next 10 years, India is going to become a $10 trillion economy. Massive infrastructure development and consumption and exports that are going to take place in India. And that's why the smart money is moving into India and emerging markets in general.
Well, some of your smart money is there. You got about $250 million invested in the India fund going there. How is it allocated?
Well, it's invested in banks. We're overweight in banks and consumption right now. Those are the next sectors that are going to perform. Over the last 2 years, the Indian government has done a phenomenal job.
Well, I was going to ask about that because to invest in banks and for people to give their money deposits to banks, you have to trust.
Yeah.
Right? There has to be a trust in banks, there has to be a trust in the government, and that all develops and evolves over time. Do you think that's happening now on the banking side? Financials are a good place to be?
It's quite interesting, actually. When the Modi government came in, they initiated opening up bank accounts for the poor people.
Right.
190 million new bank accounts have opened up in the last 2 years.
And you can trade in your gold.
That you can trade in your gold, exactly. So now what happens is all the subsidy that used to go from the federal government to the poor people, only 1/3 used to get to the poor people. Now all of the subsidies is going right at the bottom to the poor people directly because they've opened up the bank accounts and they have insurance as well.
That's very interesting. You're going to be speaking about some of these topics to investors at a symposium. We just have a minute, but tell us quickly. This is next week.
Yes.
The Excel Funds.
We believe the best way to invest in emerging market is to have people on the ground. So we have people coming from India, Birla Sun Life. We have people coming from China AMC. We have people coming from Latin America, Itaú. And we also have Amundi from Europe coming in. Collectively, they manage more than $1.5 trillion. And that's what's happening next week on Monday in Montreal and Tuesday in Toronto.
Okay.
Yes.
It's great to have you here. And good to get your thoughts. I like those thoughts on the car side of things in India. That's Bahim Ashdir.